When it comes to American sports car racing, the opening rounds have been an all-star lineup of tracks. First Sebring, then Watkins Glen, and now Road Atlanta. But compared to the first two rounds, this is a tiny circuit with few places to hide. Will it be a Georgia traffic jam? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 3 of the PRL LeMans series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. For the past 2 decades, Road Atlanta has become one of the crown jewels of endurance racing here in the US. Let's head to our track guide to learn more about it. Welcome to Road Atlanta, the scene of incredible sports car racing for decades and the home to the Petit Le Mans. This is a track that has proven itself to be worthy of attention on a world stage. With it being situated only an hour northeast of Atlanta, Georgia, the circuit is in a prime location. But despite its flagship race, in contrast to the real Le Mans, the full course is a measly 2.5 miles long. The club layouts also clock in at just under 2 miles. Packed within this small lap length is a series of technical and challenging corners, some of which can be race-ending even when small mistakes are made. Turn 1 is a fast sweeper which compresses the car into the track, but the high speeds mean that when you go off, you typically go off in a big way. Turn 3 is notorious for its curved entry into a blind apex. Too far inside and you face a cut course penalty. Too far outside and you're likely to spin out. Then there's the unassuming Turn 5. The wide curving lures you into getting greedy, but the close walls on either side gobble up cars and spit them out as a crumpled heap. With all the tricky fast turns, that's not to say that there aren't passing opportunities. The main one comes at the chicane at the bottom of the backstretch. The huge downhill drop into the turn makes outbraking yourself quite easy though, so be careful. The whole thing wraps up with a frightening final corner. With nothing but a giant wall right to the outside as cars fly through at high speed, it's not often that wrecks are small. Boasting a wide swath of series over its history, everything from NASCAR to Indy Lights and of course SimMSA, the main use of the track is SCCA events and driving schools. No wonder this place is popular both in real life and here on the iRacing service. Fans will no doubt get to enjoy many more years of action at this incredible track. One thing that amazes me is that they do actually take GTE level cars and LMP2 level cars around here and race for quite a few hours, DJ. It just seems like it would be madness trying to navigate that much traffic.
Oh, it certainly is, Joe, and it is one of the most frustrating things in the world when you are in a faster class car and you come upon a slower GTE coming through anywhere from turn 2 to turn 5, or as it is more commonly known, the S's. We heard him talk about it during the drivers meeting today, just how tricky it can be and how to be careful about it. But for every car on this track, one of the trickiest ones to get through is turn 5. It's a very, very light break of a left-handed corner. You've got to be absolutely picture perfect on it to set up one of really only 2 passing zones on this circuit, and that is going into turn 6. The other one then being off of the long run off of turn 7 and down into turn 10. Now, last time out, we saw a lot of switchbacks at Watkins Glen. We saw an ability to fight back. Here at Road Atlanta, not so much. If you're able to get the car in and throw it into the corner and get the pass made, you are more likely to be able to hold a couple of corners. But rest assured, there are places to overtake. It's just going to be tricky.
So let's keep an eye on how things unfold in that sense. If anybody's out of position, it'll certainly be a fun day. Well, maybe not fun, but regardless, today the fun is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
The PRL LeMans series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Now, let's take a look at the championships. And now that we're multi-class, we have many championships to try and run through here. The LMP2s being led by Felipe Ruiz, taking the win last round. Christian Eisler still winless, but look at how close he is to the top spot. He's been quite consistent, at least up till this point. Harbino, unfortunately, did not have the finish that he quite wanted last week, but still is in third despite missing out on a second victory. Johnston and Daly rounding out your top five in the LMP2s. Now, as for the GTE standings, up at the top of that is Rafael Russo ahead of Utman Alawi. Alawi, another one that is so close to trying to win a race, but just can't seem to do it. And still is looking like he's going to be a major contender in the championship, at least. Ash, only a single point behind him on top of it, and Ross just 3 more back from there. So 2 rounds in, and it's not looking like many are separating away in the GTEs, with Tyler DeZube the next farthest back in 15th. What about the 2 different teams championships, DJ? How are those sitting?
Well, as you can imagine, with 1 and 2 in the LMP2 team standings going to Punto CL Racing, they are sitting atop everything. Delta Sport U4K led by those boys behind them, 36 points back. NinjaTrader LMP2, 60 points back, and Torque Freak only 7 points back a third. So that's really our closest battle right now, with SRT eSport Orange sitting a distant way back, about 50 or so points back from Torque Freak. So really, really starting to separate out there, Joe. As for the GTE standings, if we bring that up, in the GTE category, you can see RSR by G Performance doing a very good job. 126 points, has a 29-point gap over Full Send Racing, but Vector by RSR only 10 points back of Full Send and only 4 points back from them Lock Up Racing. So RSR able to have a pretty good lead, but that battle for second close all the way across the board, even with SRT Esport Green sitting there just 4 points back of fourth. So it's a very, very tight battle for anywhere but first in these team championships.
Now, for today's event specifically, as we mentioned, we are in round 3, and there are 2 classes that will be running simultaneously today, the prototypes and the GTEs. It's a 60-minute event, and it is open setup. That's especially important in the prototypes because there's a lot that you can shift around on those things. And they have some penalties if they find themselves hitting each other or the walls or going off track. At 13, they will get a drive-through penalty, and 18 will be a complete disqualification. And there's the bonus points that they can also earn for being good as well. But qualifying is underway. Herbino actually up on the provisional pole by about a 10th over Carl Modoff, and Michael Ross showing he's still got speed, 0.4 of a second over the nearest rival.
And there's Herbino putting in an even better time. That's going to bump him up to about a 10.5 over Cal Quinn. Christian Eisler putting in a lap right there. He's about 2.5 tenths back, so pretty close there in those LMP2 standings. And as we look down to the GTEs, Michael Ross, as you said, currently sitting number 1, but Federico Montini just now pips him to go P1 in the GTEs.
I believe that's Francisco. His brother is the 611 in his Porsche. Managed to find a little bit more than that Ford. As we now look at Nick Delp, the laps here do go pretty quick, and that second one, unfortunately, not going to count. They do get 4 laps to try and set their fastest time. Carl Modoff, who has been bumped down just a little bit. Let's see what he can do here. Oh, we switched away. Lost sight of him. In the meantime, Michael Ross on his second time across. About 7/10 slower than his first lap, so not a good showing in that Ford the second time around.
And he is, as we've said, is there we see Herbido taking the pole back away, but Ross, the only driver in this GTE category, putting in times in that Ford. So a bit of a different setup. We watch Herbido go through the S's, but here comes Byron Daly to cross the line. He is currently 9th, looking to improve. He does about 0.3 better. Not going to be a whole lot of a bump for him. Here is Federico Montini coming across the line, able to put it in for 7th right now.
Modoff, who's been trading fastest laps with Urbano, is coming to the line now. A 108.5 last time through, and a 108.8, so about 0.3 slower for him. Now, a driver that didn't get much practice in, who seems to be doing fairly well in the prototypes, is Raymond Day, and he's currently up to 3rd in that number 77. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite him, though, as you watch him stream down the backstretch.
Yeah, Joe, we were talking about it in the pre-race that Raymond not able to turn a whole lot of laps. In fact, his only lap he turned during the first part of practice put him down with the GTEs, but there we see him work his way through that turn 10 chicane. Very, very tricky. You've got to get on the power exactly right and then hold the car through that long sweeping 11 and 12 complex as Day is unable to improve, but Eisler pops to the top of the charts with a 108.495.
Wow, okay, so Eisler is not messing around anymore. He's been doing good this season, has been just shy of some wins. Maybe today can prove the day that he finally returns to the top step of the podium. Federico Montini, who is out there running, this latest lap was his quickest. That'll get him into 5th place, and he's got 2 more that he can try and put down. Johnston in 10th also goes a little bit quicker, and that'll get him into 9th.
And there you see Carl Modoff able to pip his way to the top of the charts once again. So he, Eisler, and Herbido just trading back and forth, but it looks like all 3 of those drivers are done. That will lock them in. Harrison Proshaka coming across the line in 17th in the GTEs, not able to improve on his time, but here comes Uthman Alawi. We've seen how much speed he's had in these earlier rounds. Currently 3rd place right now. He is going to cross the line with a 15.631, not able to improve. Uthman will stay 3rd for now.
Wow. So, some surprises here today. Federico Montini coming down the backstretch, currently sitting 5th, seeing if he can use these final 2 laps to get onto the front 2 rows. Looks for his breaking point into the last chicane. His quickest at a 15.7 was 0.2 improvement last time through. They've had a very cloudy qualifying as well. It's not dark because it's late in the day. It's just that the sun has not been coming out from behind the clouds, and he's back down to a 15.9 that time by. 1 more shot for the number 5.
And here comes Ovando trying to cross the line. What can he do? Is he able to improve? He is able to get up about 2.5 faster. He will be in 8th place, it looks like. Here comes Proshaka again, trying to improve on that 117. He is dead last of the GTE, so he really wants to be putting in something strong here. Comes out of that final curve, and by 0.06 of a second, Harrison unable to improve.
That, I believe, will leave Montini, who's coming out of turn 7 currently. Kind of shocked to see our winner from round 1, Ovando, not qualify any better than 8th today, and it's not for lack of trying. He took all 4 laps out there, and I didn't see anything like damage on the car, so I'm not sure what was going on with him. He's once again into that final chicane. The number 5 sitting appropriately 5th, comes out and over the crest to the line, which comes up very early, and he's not going to take his 4th lap. He practices his pit entry instead.
Well, there you go, Joe. That's just about going to set the field, as I had Federico as the only one out on the track right now, so it looks like we're locked and loaded and ready to grid.
We are indeed. So let's go through our prototypes. Carl Modoff managing to sneak that one away and take the pole, denying Christian Eisler at least that bonus point, but he'll start on the front row alongside him. Christophe Herbineau will be starting in 3rd, followed by last round's winner Felipe Ruiz in P4. Horatio Calquin will begin 5th, and then it's Raymond Day in the 6th spot. Josh Wolf starts 7th, followed by Owen Watts to his outside. Nick Johnston in P9 will then have David Menino rounding out the top 10. Two more of our prototypes, not the biggest of fields for them today, in 11th, and Tien C. Leighton in 12th.
Michael Ross, the lone Ford GT, qualifies on pole for the GTE class, and flanking him will be Francisco Montini. Uthman Alawi, one of the strongest guys from the first 2 rounds of this series thus far, will be in the second row of the GTEs with Stephen Ash to his outside. Federico Montini will be 17th overall, followed by Mac Miller with Rafael Russo and Boris Ovando to the outside of them. Behind them is going to be Sean Romig and Ted Lowendick, followed by Tyler DeZube and Nicholas Delft. Kenny Rodriguez will be in the quarter century mark for the whole field, followed by Jerome Bethune in 26th. David Flanagan in 27th overall. Brett Barrett in 28th. And we saw Harrison Prochaka, who will be lining up in the back of the field trying to get those times in, but unable to crack that 116 mark.
29 cars out here today, and though that is a little bit smaller than what we saw in the previous 2 rounds, as I mentioned, it's a very short track. In fact, our prototypes lapping in just over a minute to get around here, so expect the traffic to still be a major factor out here today as we wait for the Porsche pace car to lead them around on the pace lap. I expect this could be an exciting one, if I want to put it mildly, as drivers will having to be dodging in and out of each other and dealing with not only difficult corners but slow traffic through portions that are pretty much single file. Now, you talked about the difficulties of turn 5, and I know I've always hated that corner as much as I love this track here, DJ. But turn 3, I've always seen catch a lot of people out over the years.
Joe, I'm convinced that turn 3 may be the most terrifying corner in all of American motorsports. You come up over the crest on turn 2, which is a slow curving, fast left-hander, and you immediately have to get onto the brakes into turn 3 very, very sharply right away. It's a right-hander right there. It is completely and totally blind. You have to just trust the car and trust your braking points. There is not a lot of visual references you can take off of it, and you've got to sling the car through there. And the biggest problem is if you try to back off, go a little bit slowly through that corner, it completely compromises you all the way down to turn 6, because yes, that turn 5 you do have to get on the brakes and slow down ever so slightly, but it's not a full braking zone, and so if you don't carry full speed out of that turn 3, you are not going to be able to get back up to speed until you're back onto the back straightaway.
The other thing that we can't forget is that there's that long backstretch to oppose all of these technical twisty bits. How much do you think the slipstream is going to be worth today?
It's going to be pretty mega. You know, this is about I would say a medium to maybe even a little bit of a low downforce circuit. Yes, you have these mega twisty bits, but you are just on open throttle for so long down the backstretch. So with that in mind, the high speeds that are going to see, there is going to be mega drafting going on. All of these LMP2s hoping that's where they're going to catch the GTE cars, be able to get by them there. And I think there's actually a chance that you may see some good picks getting thrown around there when these guys start to catch up to one another, using some of those GTEs as drafts and then kind of pinching in your competitor behind them as you make a move.
So right on board with some of our front runners coming down the back stretch now. Karl Modhoff has not won yet this season, but he's certainly showing himself to have a good bit of pace. This be his best chance, and will he deny his old-time rival Christian Eisler once again and keep Christian from winning? Or will we see Herbino pop back up to the front and surprise the both of them? This is some deep talent here this season, and the first time the Tuesday series has ever had multi-class. Now, these prototypes have been a thrill to watch. Down into the final chicane, and out of there, the pace car should peel off pretty quickly because the pit entry is just after that bridge. Seems like Modhoff's giving it a little bit of a wait. He's backing them up even. Long wait. There's the green flag, and Modhoff is off. great start for him. Already leaves Eisler behind. Single file for our top 5, top 6 until you get side by side between Day and Johnston as they sling it into the first corner. So far, so good. Let's head back to the GTEs.
Joe, I got to tell you, Francisco Montini had one of the worst starts I've ever seen. The leaders in the LMP2 class were taking the green right as they were going through that turn 10 chicane, and Montini was not even near next to Michael Ross, and as a result, Uthman Alawi was able to jump up and get into that position. So that is the early change on, but Ross leads right now. Alawi looking very strong. I got to say, Montini fading back into the clutches of Stephen Ash here for third.
So far, so good, and seeing everybody through turn 5, and already our prototypes are on the backstretch with a side-by-side battle. That's Herbino to the inside of Eisler, trying to take second place away, but Christian is quick in a straight line. Oh, and down to the inside, he jukes him, and Herbino's going to get the spot after Eisler opens up the door behind him. Don't forget about Ruiz, who takes a little bit of a peek, but then thinks better of it out of the final chicane.
And I think that may have been David Menino we saw spinning off there, one of the LMP2s not having a good go through turns 11 and 12, but absolutely brilliant there. It was Day, excuse me, it was Raymond Day. I'm just being told that is who spun. There he comes lining up to the back of the GTE field. We're going to go back to replay.
I think he just did it on his own. It'll be coming over the crest, and it looks like the car may be just losing a little bit of grip, but he came oh so close to hitting the tire barrier on the entry to pit lane. Here it is right here. Watch the inside car. Yeah, no touch at all.
Yeah, Joe, and that's what can happen coming over that corner. It's a very weird place for the apex wall. It's dangerously close to that attenuator, but it's a very weird place to crest over the hill as you're starting to put the steering into the car. And, you know, you think looking at it logically, there are multiple lines to take through there, but the truth of the matter is you can only take one line. We jump back up. Oh, that's the 58 of Ruiz going around.
Into the chicane. Unfortunately, he falls all the way to the back of the field. And another case of it just being his own fault. He sent it in deep, trying to see if he can overtake, and went a little too deep. The 58 suddenly finds himself facing the wrong way. And you also sort of gave a bit of a weird commentator's curse to David Menino. He spun and wrecked out of turn 5 as we were watching the replay of Day.
David, I am so sorry. I love watching you race. That was not intentional, my friend. But in terms of Ruiz there, very, very tricky. It just looks like he held the brakes a little bit too long and started to turn in steering, and that just caused those rear brakes to lock and push him forward. But there we see the number 3 of David Menino starting to fight his way back through the field, dispatching GTEs. You can see the leader of the GTEs, still Michael Ross, there behind him as they come down the hill.
What if we could go to Alawi, because he's not too far behind Ross, but even closer is Stephen Ash. It's about 0.3 of a second. There you see him, and the Martini liveried Ford is Ross, and then behind him is Alawi and Ash as they start to pick up speed. I think Stephen's going to start to get the slipstream. Our winner from last round at Watkins Glen closes and then doesn't have enough, so he'll stay put in line.
This is where setups and in these GTEs, Joe, the actual car types are going to be really, really fascinating. You know, that Ford is very well renowned at being a very difficult car to drive, but if you get it right, it is ridiculously fast. Always known as being fast in a straight line, as in the real world, it was developed to be able to tackle Mulsanne at LeMans. So this may play into Ross's hand down the backstretch if he can keep everything nice and clean through Sector 1.
We ride on board currently with the 11 of Stephen. Oh! Was that a slowdown penalty maybe for Alawi? Suddenly just lets him by.
I think it had to have been very easy to cut the course there in that 2-3-4 section. Then jump back to the replay here. Little bit of a clip. No, Joe, no. He just got all kinds of loose, took too much curb on the inside of turn 3. That forced him to run wide, take a little bit more into turn 4, and he just couldn't get the power down. But here he comes fighting back on Stephen Ash.
Wants that position back. He's going to follow in the tire tracks as they pick up speed. Francisco Montini is following them as well, so if they start fighting, they could lose time and be under threat. He's also going to try to break as late as possible, but he's also going to lose it, much like we saw with Ruiz. Nearly gets into his rival, and then behind him, Francisco Montini can't slow up in time and hits the side of him just so gently. The 444 and the 611 keep going, but some embarrassment for Uthman Alawi, throwing away second place with 2 mistakes.
I gotta say, that is very uncharacteristic of Uthman. We have not really seen him have any mistakes. Is Francisco there having almost a look down into turn 3? Very brave stuff from him, but no, Uthman Boria, normally a very calm, cool, and collected driver, making a couple of mistakes here. He's still got over 50 minutes left in this race, though, so plenty of time to gather his composure.
Can we get a chopper shot or something? Because my goodness, Alawi now has all kinds of company. Montini and Montini, Miller, Day is in there, as well as the car of Raymond Day, Dzube and Ovando, Romig. Look at this. It's just a whole bunch of cars in line behind him.
It's just an absolute train, and the guys in the back of this have got to be loving it. There you can see Day trying to work his way through that field. He has got to be sweating bullets. Oh, here he comes into turn 10. Very, very difficult to try to judge the braking of the GTEs when you're in one of those LMP2s, but he's able to do it right. Now Day is going to be praying to get by Alawi here on the main straightaway. He does. He's not going to have to suffer behind the S's, but there you see the brothers Montini starting to fight out a little bit as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a look to the inside from Federico on Francisco. Couldn't make it stick. That slows him up, and Mac Miller gets close to the behind of that Porsche. All of them smoother through there than Alawi was a couple laps ago. Still, oh my goodness, just all over the rear wing, and Mac Miller also trying to get some sweat out of Federico.
Miller really starting to do moves, and that's Russo right behind them, so the three of them just throw an absolute blanket over him. There you see not as good of an exit out of turn 5 from Miller that allowed Russo to catch up. Here they come through that turn 7. That's the slowest corner on the track, and now you see it start to separate out ever so slightly as we ride on board with Russo trying to trail in on Miller. Looks like Miller's able to get the run though on Montini. He's going to go to what will be the outside of turn 10. That's going to be very tricky to get done. Montini holds to the inside. They come together a little bit. No contact between the two of them. Looking for an over-under. Not going to happen, but ooh, little contact from the front.
There's the gearbox cam of Montini looking right into the nose of Mac Miller. And Rafael Russo now going to try and follow him through on the inside. No, he comes back to the racing line as they duck into turn 1. Goes around the outside of Mac Miller, or at least tries to. Somehow holds onto it. Too wide into turn 3. Doesn't usually go well. And somehow Rafael Russo takes that Corvette into 6, just muscling past his rival.
That was sheer force of will from Rafael Russo going, I want that spot and you're not taking it from me. You hit the nail on the head, Joe. You do not pass through that corner. There is one racing line through there, but Rafael Russo rewriting the rule book here today at Road Atlanta.
Fantastic stuff amongst this group, and it's not over. Look at how close they are amongst each other. Let's stay here, but I can tell you that Eisler lost a spot to Ruiz, but Ruiz seems to have wrecked because he's suddenly down in 10th now. So now I'm very curious. Let's see if this will erupt, because it looks like we'll have a pass with Ovando trying to get past Dzube into the chicane. Dzube does not defend. Ovando's got the first apex, but he's got to finish the job coming around the right-hand portion, and he's got it. In fact, another car coming through even. Here is Sean Romig. So 2 positions in 1 turn for poor Tyler Dzube.
And Sean Romig getting a little friendly with the outside grass there on turn 12. Thought he may have spun it. You see Romig taking a slightly narrower line there through turn 1, trying to just defend if he can from Dzube. Dzube hot on his heels, though.
In the meantime, wow, what is going on with Karl Modov? Did some traffic slow him up? Because Urbano was not this close just a little bit ago. He is 2 tenths behind, and by the way, it was Cal Quinn that passed a similarly painted car to Ruiz that confused me earlier. He got by Eisler. Meantime, down into turn 6, and Urbano is putting the pressure on. They get to the back of the GTE field. Delp and Rodriguez up in front of them, slow through turn 7, and they're both going to have to duck off to the side as they pick up speed down the backstretch.
Very unfortunate there from Modoff coming into turn 7 like that. Not where you want to pass a car. You don't want to jink out to the outside, but here comes Herbino. Gonna try to power. That'll be the inside line for Herbino in the 92 as they come into turn 10. He has the line. It looks like Modoff just lets him go. Knows this is a long race, and he doesn't want to fight too hard.
Two teammates looking like they're trying to play the long game here as they deny the apex to Ted Lowendick down on the final corner. And then up into turn 1 as just ahead of them, Miller is not giving up on Ovando, who is just behind him, the other way around. Ovando not giving up on Mac Miller, and too wide through the S's, usually tends to end in tears. Oh, wow, has to back out of it. That was Karl Modoff seeing the writing on the wall and giving up the time.
You are right. You normally cannot get any sort of passing done there through the S's. We heard Race Control talk about it at the top of the race, but very heads up there, both from Modoff and those GTE drivers around them to just let everything by. So there you see Modoff working his way back around those slower GTEs, trying to reset his sights on Herbino. Now there's plenty of drafting with these GTEs. You can pick up a good tow, even though you're coming on pass. As we jump back, there's Alawi. As you see him, he just got around Montini.
Wait, was he behind Montini before?
That's my bad. No, that's my bad.
Okay. I was so lost. I was watching them for a little bit, and I wasn't sure if I missed something. But yeah, they're incredibly close regardless. And Francisco is trying to make the 444 think twice about things. Still being overtaken by some of our leaders in the prototypes. That's Modoff behind him, and he might get stuck in the S's yet again behind the GTEs. He manages to overtake Montini, but he's not going to be able to do much with Alawi here. Has to stay patient up and over turn 5. And just because of those 2 laps, it's gone from 2/10 to 2 seconds between Urbano and Modoff.
It's exactly what can happen here at Road Atlanta. And turn 5 is very... And we've had a problem with Ovando. I'm not sure what exactly happened to him, but you can see him there dropping down the order to 14th place. We jump back to replay, Joe. It
was Christian Eisler who makes contact with him as he was trying to outrun Byron Daly. And unfortunately, as they come through turn 4 into the S's, you're going to see just here in the left-hander, tries to go around the outside, doesn't quite time it right, and unfortunately the pair of them connect in a way that sends Ovando into the concrete, actually.
And I can report that Boris has towed the car. There you see him on pit lane. That hard lick to the front of the car probably doing some suspension damage, if not engine damage as well. So that may be well over. But here comes Daly and Eisler. This battle's heating up real fast.
So it looks like Daly has gotten by Eisler, and he's trying to come back at him. But now Francisco Montini is just at a horrible place for Christian Eisler, and he watches him scamper off into the distance.
Yeah, there you can see that traffic really coming into play, but ooh, look down the inside, held off well. Good little bit of defense there.
That was Cal Quinn that Daly had caught up to very quickly, once again because of the traffic, but he needed that better launch coming off of turn 7, and Daly didn't get it. So he drops back at a time that he wants to be streaming on by the 666. Daly, let's not forget, he seems to be doing this a lot lately. He started in 11th, and he's looking at a podium already. Oh, as he makes a little bit of contact with Stephen Ash. That was our 2nd place driver in the GTEs. He'll get away with it, but now Eisler is back on top of him.
And that's just how fast things can change here. Here comes Eisler looking to the inside of turn 1. Is he going to do it? Daly takes a wide line, cuts off Eisler. Eisler has to check up a little bit. That in turn may open him up to Nicholas Johnston if he's not careful.
I suspect Ash is not happy about that exchange. She is trying to keep up with Michael Ross, and any sort of damage like that is going to be incredibly harmful, as way wide off of turn 5, Christian Eisler pushing hard, but unfortunately it didn't seem to serve him well.
No, it didn't. Eisler just pushing as hard as he can, but that battle right in front of them really starting to spice up a little bit. Daly got a good run. Oh, no, excuse me, that's Michael Ross. Those cars look too similar. Those cars look too similar, Joe. That got me confused.
Yeah, still a ways back. Ross going to be overtaken by the prototype as well. Actually, behind them, Nicholas Johnston down to the inside of Christian Eisler, and the Iceman has to lose another one. He goes to 6th. He qualified 2nd. He's on the opposite trajectory of Daly.
Man, oh man, that is just an uncharacteristic performance from Eisler here. Still under 45 minutes, just under 45 minutes to go, so plenty of time for him to recover, but the Iceman just absolutely seeming to struggle here at Road Atlanta. A combination of catching everything, but we're going to jump back. Here comes Russo and Miller. Good battle.
Oh, and they're going to go 3 wide with the prototype almost in the grass as Mac Miller just had unfortunate timing. Russo is able to fend him off, and that was David Menino. Probably gripping his steering wheel incredibly tight. In front of them, there's a car off track, and I think that's a cut course penalty for Francisco Montini that we can see.
It most certainly is, but look at what this is going to do here. This is going to bunch that 2-car battle back into a 3-car battle with Francisco, Rafael, and Mac Miller all getting very, very close. This is going to come down to who gets the launch off of turn 7 down the back stretch. This could determine who's able to bump their way up to 5th place.
Miller sees 2 of them now, thinking I could maybe get a few more spots than I anticipated as we hop on board with the 79. He's gathering on Russo, but Russo didn't get the launch he needed to try and attack Montini. They approach the chicane, hit the braking on the downhill, and boy, that Porsche from Miller is very strong on the binders, gets right up underneath the 22, and great acceleration on top of it. He could have something if he's brave in the final corner. No, he sits behind. He'll get a little bit of a tow down the front stretch before they get into the swift right-hander of turn 1. He thinks about it, but not actually going to make an attempt.
All right, looking at that performance there from Mac Miller, my mind is starting to go make the pass into 6. If he is strong on the brakes, that's going to be a really, really good opportunity for him. Just keep the speed up here. Let's see what he can do out of turn 5. They dive down through the S's. He's got to keep this nice and close. Closes up a little bit during braking. There you see him running very wide in front Russo. That is perfectly allowed, but it looks like Miller just couldn't get that run, Joe.
He's still got a good chance. They're coming to the backstretch. And once again, it seems Russo just can't himself get close enough to Francisco Montini. The Corvette may be good the long way around to turn 1, but is not good enough in a straight line today. Miller, on the other hand, is going to have to pick a side, sticking in the middle. Russo forces him all the way down to the inside. Now he comes back to the racing line as Miller has a tiny bit of an overlap onto the binders. He denies him the apex, but still fends him off. Russo doesn't get a great exit off of the chicane. Here comes Miller once again. Once again, he does not try and go too wide through the final corner. And there's the block down to the inside of turn 1 as Rafael Russo is throwing everything he can to keep the 79 back there.
Joe, looking at that angle head on, I thought for sure Russo was going to run him off the road. Great spatial awareness from Rafael to know just how much he had in front of Miller. But Miller, clearly the faster car here, just getting held up at the wrong points by Russo. He's got to try to force his way by as quick as he can.
Behind him, there you can see it's another battle. Zube and Romig staying very tight to one another. Zube in the number 13 running the orange, white, and black car, and then the green and black belonging to Sean Romig, who we've hopped on board with. This could be a good opportunity. Let's see what the 13's got.
There you can see LMP2's coming down the inside. They've got to watch it. There's the dart out to the left, so that'll be clean and dusted, but can he make the move here? Zube down to the inside. He does indeed go for it, deprives him a little bit of the apex. Can he fight back for the over-under? No, he cannot, but that may open the door up for Ted Lowendick, who's starting to close in behind.
Almost like a chain reaction that we've been seeing from these battles. As soon as 2 come together, a third starts to join as they slow one another up down into the first corner. 3 very different lines amongst 3 Porsches, and then they break into the blind turn 3. All of them trying to just clip that inside curve, bounding it over, plunging back downhill. And, did we have a problem with Leighton? No, we didn't. He just got overtaken. It seems Owen Watts up to 8th there. We don't need to go to it, but a change of position for our prototypes. Meanwhile, into turn 6 amongst this group, and it stays Romig 8th, Dzube 9th, and Lowendick in 10th.
Yeah, they're going to stay single file for the moment, but these GTE battles just fast and fierce all their way up and down the track. But here comes that long draft straightaway. What does Dzube have for Romig? We saw him try down the inside on the last time, deprived him of the apex, but wasn't able to get the move done. Here he goes. He's close enough. He's going to think about it. He is not going to do it. Everybody onto the binders. Maybe he's going to hope to get a good run here out of that turn 10B. Here they go. No. Once again, Sean Romig really powerful out of the chicane, able to deprive Dzube just enough to prevent a pass into one.
And right on the nose of Dzube. Off the apex there a little bit. Romig has to try and catch the car. Too wide into turn 3 once again. No, Dzube's not willing to do that, although it causes him to be unsighted. He misses the apex, and now Lowendick thinks about it as well into the S's and decides he doesn't want to try and do that either.
And Joe, we talked about it at the top of the broadcast, just how terrifying that 2-3 complex is, and that's one of the reasons why you don't go too wide like that, and why I do genuinely think that Tyler Dzube backed off. Because you can't see anything, you cannot predict how the car is going to perform. So if you are offline, you are venturing into no man's land, and you've just got to hold on to the wheel and pray. So Dzube's smart to back off, not to push the issue at all.
The trio remains all together down into the chicane. They're going to be joined by another LMP2. This is Urbano, our leader, actually. The 92 just waiting patiently through the chicane. He's got about a 5-second lead over Modoff, so he can take his time.
He's going to work. We're going to jump back. Here's a good battle going into one. This is Johnson on Daly. Johnson ever so slightly outbrakes himself, but is able to hold the line. So move Nick Johnson up into P4 over Byron Daly, but Daly fighting back as they cross the timing and scoring line.
Down to the inside, and it almost squeezes him all the way to the pit wall. Into turn 1. They've got to try and pick their way around. Are they going to go 3 wide up on the entry? Oh, and he gets into the Corvette. He holds onto the car. Somehow Daly survives that, retains his 4th place, but not without a little bit of shoving on Brett Barrett.
And that's going to put Christian Eisler and Joshua Wolf right up his tailpipe. So this is going to get very, very decisive here. Still held up a little bit by David Flanagan in that Corvette, but he's able to get the run. Oh, there's contact! That is Joshua Wolf spinning around.
Wolf and Barrett find themselves way off course. Big hit for Josh Wolf, and Barrett, I think, actually went over the barriers.
Go back to check this out on replay. This is just a classic schmozzle of Road Atlanta. There you see the contact. Bam, hard hit. Oh, as he got collected. I'm not sure who that was behind. But you are right. He went to go live with the tree people on that one.
Yeah, that was Leighton, the number 19, that hit him. The prototype scooped him up and unfortunately sent him off into the trees. Meanwhile, let's go back to Eisler and Johnston, because those two are now fighting on the front stretch side by side. Johnston on the outside, they're going to bang wheels, and that sends Johnston into the tires. Oh no. After really good racing at the start, now we've seen contact multiple times and back-to-back laps.
Here you can see it. That's set up by a good run out of that final corner from Johnson. Johnson goes to the outside on Eisler, comes in here. Joe, I gotta say this, Johnson just pinched him. That's a little bit of an accident of his own making. I think he just pinched him down ever so slightly. Eisler slightly off that normal apex line, but he's entitled to be out a little bit, but you can see the damage there on the 28 of Nicholas Johnson. Definitely taking some nicks.
And Eisler's not done with it. Man, he's playing defense against everybody. He's keeping Watts boxed in, but Watts backs out of it, and that opens the door to Felipe Ruiz on his recovery drive, who is 11th now. Probably himself a little bit worried watching all this craziness, and he's going to be able to use his own pick. That was Kenny Rodriguez that just slowed up Owen Watson. Ruiz back to 6th.
Kenny Rodriguez, absolutely the meat and an LMP2 sandwich there coming out of turn 10. I'm sure his knuckles are positively white on the wheel. But as we watch now, Watts trying to get that spot back from Ruiz, but Ruiz able to pull away a little bit. But we have one of our first pitters here, is Wolf and Johnson, both suffering damage on that last lap. They're both coming in.
Good news is I do believe this is within the pit window, so I think they should be okay to make it to the end. It's a little bit early, but should be doable with a little bit of fuel saving. Meanwhile, this fight continues. Still, Eisler, Ruiz, and Owen Watts. This is for 5th position. Christian's getting more use out of his mirror than he is his windscreen.
And that fight we were following earlier, that Dzube and Romig and Russo fight continuing along to happen. So this is going to be catching them at the absolute worst time for Eisler and Ruiz to do it. There you see a little bit of side-by-side, but they're going to hold it out.
Eisler gets through the first 2, nice and easy, and he gets the 3rd before turn 1. Timed it perfectly to get by Dzube. That will catch out the likes of Watts and Ruiz, though.
Had to get very, very brave on the brake pedal there through turn 2 and 3. They're going to catch up with Dzube, though, right at the S's. That's going to slow down Felipe Ruiz a lot. If Watts can capitalize on this, he can indeed. Look at that run. Can he get the pass coming down into 6th? They're going to go for it. Is he going to make the move? No, he's going to stay behind.
Ruiz now the one that's having to be the hunted, compared to hunting Eisler just moments ago, getting as much slipstream as he can on Rafael Russo, but it's not going to help him enough. Here comes Owen Watts pulling behind the number 58, seeing if he can demote him one more time. Ruiz defends all the way to the inside, tried to make it clear he's not going to give this up easily, and out of the final chicane, Ruiz stays in 6th.
Ruiz got very, very close to crossing over the line of that inside curve of turn 10A. And there you see a little bobble for him coming out of 12. Not enough to capitalize there for Watts going into turn 1, but they're going to catch up on some more lap traffic here as they get by Mac Miller and the brothers Montini now right ahead of them. So they're going to catch them through the S's. It's a repeat of the last lap, Joe.
And that did not work out well for Watts, who was trying to get to the inside of Francisco Montini. So a tiny bit of breathing space for the number 58. And also breathing space, we have to say, for Christian Eisler, 2.5 seconds up the road because of all that back and forth.
Yeah, and Eisler will be very thankful to have at least one lap of relative calm here at Road Atlanta. It seems like every time we've changed the cameras, he's been involved in something. As there you see Christoph Herbino setting the fastest lap yet again. He has extended that lead up front to a whopping 6.2 seconds over Karl Modov.
Gets by some more of the lap traffic. Alawi letting them through. Still sitting in the 3rd position. Another podium for Alawi on the cards. They come out of the final turn. An update on our 2 prototypes that have pitted. Johnston is back out running in 11th. He's actually ways behind Raymond Day, who's the next one up. Josh Wolf, unfortunately, his damage was too much. He's having to sit and take extensive repairs in that 12.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that, Joe. You know, Johnson did a relatively good job of pumping the brakes and getting through the kitty litter just fine. Looked like some relatively minor damage to the front end of that car, but Wolf really smacked that car hard right at that exact corner we just saw. So not surprised that he's got to be coming in for a lot. I'd love to see him back out on the track here today, but I think the chances that are happening are relatively slim.
Going by Stephen Ash now. Ruiz gets in front of him, and then Owen Watts gets in front of him. I think Watts may be losing out on the slipstream from here on out. Ruiz finally able to shake him just about halfway through this race, and we had another fastest lap set. Who was that?
I believe it was Karl Modoff that put it in there, Joe. So Modoff starting to respond a little bit to Herbino. He's been able to get that gap down under 6 seconds, if not just barely. So Modoff clearly has something left in the tank here for Herbino.
Boy, and that fastest lap is close. Urbano's fastest, a 108.741. Modoff's a 108.728. 2/100ths quicker, less than 2/100ths quicker than Christoph. He's going to have to make bigger inroads than that as we get a few of our drivers in. David Menino is on the lane, and Raymond Day also.
So both of those drivers had a little bit of damage earlier in the race. If you remember, they were able to continue going, but near the back of the field. So I wouldn't be surprised for both of them, as there you see Herbino saying, no, you know what, I can do that too, putting in a 108.635. But both of those pitting drivers trying to get some repairs done probably. But here we go. This is Eisler and Ruiz. Ruiz taking a look to the inside at 10, but Eisler shuts that off.
So much ebb and flow between rivals here today, and I have to attribute most of it to the traffic. Ruiz backs up the corner, looks for the launch out of turn 1, but doesn't get the run that he was looking for. Eisler fends him off over the hill and down into the S's one more time. That's Watts still in amongst them, and they don't have any GTEs immediately to the north of them. It looks like they've basically got a clear track, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, I think they'll be able to hold it out for the time being, but what that little battle allowed to happen is Owen Watts able to close up to the back of Felipe Ruiz. Ruiz not getting the best exit off of the corner there, but you can see the setups coming in mid straightaway. Ruiz is finding a little bit of speed, so this is not done and dusted, but Owen Watts really taking advantage of that double draft. I don't think anybody's close enough to make a move. No, they're going to stay single file through turn 10 chicane.
And up and out of it to complete yet another lap around here. Say speed down the front stretch. Felipe Ruiz is very close. He looks quick in a straight line, at least on that part of the circuit. Eisler still retains that 5th place. If he keeps this top 5, he has earned this one, even if he qualified in 2nd.
Well, there's a reason we call him the Iceman. He is always cool under pressure, and he is proving it absolutely without a doubt here today as we ride on board with Owen Watts. As you see Ruiz trying to sight up Eisler for a pass, but absolutely nothing is able to get done there for Eisler as Ruiz goes wide.
On to the back stretch, and Ruiz finds himself down in 7th yet again. Let's take a look at the replay. Mistake prone is all you can say about Felipe Ruiz today.
Yeah, it looks like he just tried to carry a little bit too much speed through that corner, recognized it right at about the apex, tried to hold that trail brake a little bit longer. Car tried to break away from him. He was able to catch it, but not being on the power early enough, that certainly cost him time. And now he is under massive pressure from Leighton here as they work their way around a GTE, who able to get through it into turn 1.
As that's happening, the Montinis still have Mac Miller close behind them. This is for 4th, 5th, and 6th in the GTE class. Miller doesn't poke his nose out this time. I thought he was close enough he could try something. But let's not forget, these cars tend to go quite a bit longer than what our LMP2s can do over the course of a lap. So we should see most of them try to take it as long as possible, especially with the chaos here today. I don't know that we really see much difference between pitting early or pitting late.
No, I think honestly one of the biggest keys may just be if you can figure out track position, Joe. If you're able to time the pit stop where you're coming in, you've been able to run a pretty clean in lap, dive into the pits and sight it behind you where you'll be able to go, okay, I know I can come out in some clean air. That may be the difference between a position here as we start to look forward to these pit stops.
On the back stretch one more time. Miller farther back than what he was before. Francisco keeping himself at arm's length. And then Federico is the leading of the two brothers, still in P4. What if they actually have been somewhat working together amongst the pair of them? I do believe they are on a team together.
They are indeed, as you see them work their way down the hill and onto the straightaway. There they've got some LMP2 traffic going to catch them up, see if that catches them at a bad position. Looks like there Francisco had to get a little offline, but that LMP2 able to clear them as they come back through yet again. A little bit more coming through the S's. This could get dicey.
And as that happened, we've had a couple drivers, major players in the prototypes, take their pit stops. Modoff is in, Cal Quinn is in, Daly is back out in 8th position. There's Carl Modoff waiting for fuel and tires. Actually, probably mostly just fuel, I should say.
And Joe, I can also tell you that Eisler, Watts, and Ruiz all coming in as well, so that really only leaves Leighton and Herbino out on the track right now. So this is going to be a very, very quick decider to figure out who called this strategy right.
I think we're getting towards the end of the pit window, so Christoph should be in soon. Modoff is out and away. Speaking of clear track, there is nobody around Carl Modoff right now. He's timed it perfectly, and indeed, Christoph takes the 92 down in for service.
All right, so here comes the battle of the pit lane. You know, that gap was hovering around 5 seconds beforehand, so we'll have to see if Modoff is able to pull out anything at all. There you see him. That stopped 24 seconds for Modoff, 46 seconds on the pit lane, as here comes Herbino to a stop at his pit stall.
So taking his service, there's the pit comparison between the pair of them. 24, just about 25 seconds for Carl Modoff, who is on the back stretch, pulling a nice toe from Bertoum. Bertoum just gonna hang off to the right side, seeing the LMP2 coming, making sure he doesn't get in the way. And Christoph is off. He's past the cones. So our leader is not going to lose the lead in this sequence. He is up at the front and pulling away, as behind him Leighton will go behind Carl Modoff, who is now past the pit entry. Let's see what the gap is between them. Pit stops were about a second different from one another, with Herbino going quicker, and looks like 10 seconds. Man, Carl lost a lot in that exchange, which kind of surprises me.
Surprises me as well, Joe, and I think, you know, we weren't really watching Carl too much on his in-lap. I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe caught some traffic there, and that's what caught him out. But there you can see those live gaps on the left side of your screen. This field really starting to separate out as we see it once these guys have taken their pit stops. Eisler a little bit in the battle with Watts and Ruiz, as we saw before the pit stops, but no real changes.
So that's all of our prototypes done with their stops, but none of our GTEs have pitted. This man continues to lead 8.5 seconds really over Stephen Ash currently. Utman Alawi also 8 seconds back in third place. Very much split up amongst our podium runners.
Yeah, very large split, and real kudos here to Michael Ross. He has driven a very, very quiet race, but one that has been absolutely stellar. No mistakes at all for your GTE leader.
So what's interesting, among these 3 runners on the podium, only one has taken a victory, and that's Stephen Ash. And he, of course, took it in Watkins Glen, but sits in second place currently as he runs his Porsche through turn 3 and then down 4 into the S's. It's like, let's see, is there, yep, there's going to be Leighton behind him pretty soon. Shouldn't cause too much of trouble, as he is likely to catch him on the back stretch. 21 minutes left to go on the clock. Who is going to pit win for our GT cars?
Well, Joe, this is a pretty power-heavy circuit. That long back straightaway really just chugging down the gallons of fuel that you put into the car. So my best guess is we're going to probably see these guys within 5 to maybe 10 minutes. Although, as you did mention, they can make it very, very long into the stint.
Despite the limited fuel cell, they still go quite a ways down through the chicane, and as predicted, Leighton is by on the backstretch without too much hassle. So far, really, we've only had one hard charger that I can see in the field, at least out of the prototypes. I'm not entirely sure on the GTEs, but Byron Daly still sitting in 4th place after qualifying in 11th. Someone needs to take that boy out for some qualifying practice, because he would be almost unstoppable if he could just start a little higher up.
Exactly, and Joe, you know, right there, that is just an example of absolutely expert racecraft. It is just, he knows how to slice through the field. When you've got those slow GTEs ahead of you, he can make the car work and make it go around. And, you know, may not have the outright speed. His fastest lap that he has set thus far is currently a 109.143, almost a half a second off. But we have one of our first pitters from the GTEs, that is Kenny Rodriguez.
And we just heard over the radio that Ross is pitting. There's Rodriguez taking his Corvette back out. Our leader is heading in.
There he comes. It's a very tricky pit entry here at Road Atlanta. That little chicane, very easy to catch you out, and there is that very, very hard and formidable wall right to your outside. As there you see Stephen Ash coming down the pit lane as well. Looks like Alawi is going to stay out. Alawi coming in as well, as it looks like Francisco Montini will come in while his brother Federico is going to stay out.
Indeed. Russo is going in to Zube, Lowendick. Wow, a lot of drivers. So it seems a few have been able to save enough fuel. It is a short lap, as we mentioned, so definitely possible to get an extra one out there. Ross returning. He's not going to lead every lap, as the number 67 returns in 3rd, but well ahead of Stephen Ash. Ash seems to have made up a bit of ground in the pit stops, even though he was stationary longer than Ross, so must have had a little bit of a better in that number 11.
I think that very well could be it, but oh, Joe, we've got a battle off the pit lane between Russo and Montini.
Now, here's the bad news, is you can get a penalty for crossing over the line too early. So hopefully he didn't shove him across that line, because I don't think it matters if you get pushed. It's automated by iRacing.
Oh, that is so close. That is so painfully close there for Russo. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Looks like he made it through. Russo is now out in 7th ahead of Montini. But again, we still have 3 drivers actually, that have yet to pit. One, Federico, who is in, and Mack is in. Meanwhile, side by side almost between Watts and Eisler down the back stretch. Eisler defends. Watts looking around the outside, maybe trying to pick him off with the over-under, and I think he's going to do it. Finds the traction, almost goes into the grass over the top of the hill, and he's too chicken to try and get through on the final corner. Backs out of it as the 727, once again proving the master of defense today.
Oh my goodness, Christian Eisler just absolutely electric today. The Iceman proving his namesake quite well, not backing down at all from that attack from Owen Watts. Watts now has to regain his composure a little bit. You see up ahead of them, that is Byron Daly. Daly, our hard charger, clearly getting his sights set to by Christian Eisler, so this may not be done yet.
To ride on board with Owen Watts, and those hands are moving a whole lot. It doesn't seem to like the car late in the stint. They start to pick up speed. I think we'll get a second shot as they come down towards the braking into the final chicane. No, he's not. He's too far behind.
That was a really heads-up move from Eisler there. You see that, like, that fast kink of turn 9, that right-hander. What he was able to do is he actually moved the car off the apex ever so slightly of that sweeping corner, and that broke the draft just enough to Watts to blunt his momentum. So Eisler thinking with 100% of his brain here today, doing a really, really good job to keep guys behind him.
Now, did we miss something with Nick Johnston? I see him grayed out and has disconnected. I think he must have had an accident or just decided to give it up, because it was an internet issue for the 28. Sad to see we now have had 2 retirees. But 2 drivers that have not retired are Rafael Russo and Francisco Montini. Francisco closing in into turn 6, but doesn't stick his nose in. They let Leighton get through.
And we'll have to see there a little bit of a different exit line from Russo and Montini. But Montini able to tuck up behind in the draft. Ooh, you can see the closing speed of that Porsche on the Corvette. I think he's going to have a good look here. Starts to think about going down the inside. Forces the issue. That's going to put him on the outside for turn 10. Can he make this work? We haven't seen a lot of people get it done here today. Goes back in for the over-under, trying to force Russo off the line, but Russo, too wily of a veteran, able to just keep the power on and keep Montini behind him.
And back there, you can see the prototype of Raymond Day trying to play patient. He's last of his class currently, and he's not fighting with anybody. Down through turn 1, a little wide there for Francisco. Almost put himself into the grass, and now he's going to have to wait for the prototype to separate them, at least temporarily.
That's really, really tough there for Montini. He had been so close, and that move from Day, perfectly good, perfectly wonderful move, but just put Montini out at the wrong time. And he's got to be a little bit careful. Tyler DeZube only about 1.5, 1.6 seconds behind him. So any mistake here, and he could quickly find himself under attack by DeZube.
And all this to determine a top 5 out there. Russo picks up speed, 155 miles an hour down the backstretch. He looks well clear of Francisco. Doesn't even need to defend into this final chicane. They'll get one more friend joining, David Menino, sitting in 9th in the prototypes. Another one that isn't battling with anybody directly. Should be able to play patient until right about here. Oh, is he going to create a pick, though? Potentially. Not quite. Thought that we could see Montini maybe try to duck to the inside of turn 1.
So we jump back here to Christian Eisler and Owen Watts. This battle continuing. You can see they just passed the GTE leader of Michael M. Ross, but Watts now tucking up behind Eisler in the draft. Starts to poke his nose out a little bit, thinking about making the move. Is he going to try for a sell, or is he going to go for the full send here? Decides to back off, play it a little bit more cautious for Watts. Just under 12 and a half minutes to go, so Watts' time, he's got a little bit left, but he's got to start thinking about where he's going to make this move.
Maybe right here, because he's got a shot. He closes in up towards 1. Nope, he says not here. Still, once we rode on board yet again, I couldn't help but notice that it just doesn't seem like the tires are all there for Owen Watts. He is having to make so many corrections inside that LMP2.
Well, and you can see just how much time he's losing there through the S's. Joe, we talked about setup at the top, and I'm going to gander a bit of speculation here. I think Owen Watts may be running a lower downforce setup. That car not seeming to handle as well through the medium speed corners. The slower corner there, you see he gets on the power, he's got to fling it around, so that low downforce, it's going to give him great runs down the straightaway here, but he's not going to be handle well through the S's, and his tires will wear off faster.
Just can't find the throttle as quickly. He's going to weave his way around David Flanagan's Corvette. Thankfully, no issues amongst them. Still, he is glued to the rear wing of the 727 as Christian Eisler. Is he going to defend? No, he's not. He's going to leave the door open. Owen Watts takes it down to the inside of turn 1. It's been many laps in the making, but almost what seems uneventful after all that fighting. Owen Watts finally into P5.
It's what we used to call back in Indiana, a bit of a letdown move there. But for Watts, we're going to jump back here to Russo and Montini. This battle absolutely continuing as there you see Russo locks up the brakes. That's going to give Montini a great shot to the start-finish.
Down to the inside in the final corner. They should have enough space to make it stick, but barely slides in front of him. Russo says, okay, let's take that right back. Too wide into turn one now as well. And he gets the curb. The Corvette doesn't like it, and he backs out.
Oh, great moves from Montini. Really able to make that Porsche work incredibly well for him. Porsche known for being a little bit better on the brakes. That's the Corvette GTE, a very quick car off the line, but those brakes a little bit squirrely. If you have any sort of bleed over with throttle and braking, it will tend to wiggle around on you quite a bit. So that could be a little bit of an effect, but here he comes, coming back at him. Russo not letting this die easy.
Yeah, that was set up by the prototype of Modov, who's still in second and trying to chase down Urbano. Not to much success. It's about 7.5 seconds for them. And a poor exit off of turn 7 for Russo. And look at how small in the distance Montini is very suddenly.
Well, these drivers just have a habit of proving me wrong anytime I bring up a technical point, Joe. There you see the Corvette getting a bad jump off the line. So clearly, Rafael Russo able to control that car a lot better than I can.
Just behind them, that is Dzube still. And that is for position, mind you. So he's watching this with great interest. He certainly would like them to battle a bit more in these final 9 minutes. See if he can get himself into the top 5 as well. Federico and Francisco, as we've seen in seasons past, have been glued to one another for much of this race. Very similar pace between the pair of them. Looking at a 4th and 5th, but in past coverage, they've also had problems finishing races at time. Can they do that here today for the last few minutes of the event, keep them clean, and manage to claim a double top 5 for the family?
Well, Rafael Russo looks like he's going to try to have something to say about it. Still clearly a little aggravated after that pass that Francisco was able to get on him, trying to claw back into that position, but not really able to close up on the top speed there.
Miller's going to get a spot. Miller is side by side with Dzube, and Dzube locks up into the final chicane, handed it over. Now, it almost looked facilitated. Let's look at the replay. I can't tell if Dzube just was offline and couldn't tell where his marker was, or if he intentionally tries to let him through.
I think that's there's a little bit of a lockup from Dzube, but judging from that earlier angle that I saw there, Joe, I almost think he didn't realize how close Mac Miller was behind him. It looked like he was taking just sort of a relatively easy braking line into that corner, not trying to dive it in, and clearly didn't work out well for him, so good job for Mac Miller.
No doubt about that. As we get ready to come to the final few laps of this race. Ooh. And between them, Horatio Calquin getting a little bit squirrely. Last thing that any of these three won is wrecking amongst each other, throwing away good finishes. Calquin on a podium finish right now. He's going to be able to leave them behind safely. Our 6th and 7th place drivers, unfortunately, come away from one another. Unfortunate for us, for the neutral bystander, but good news for Mac Miller, who at least gets to breathe for a second.
And he'll be able to breathe for a few seconds, but as soon as some more LMP2s enter in the picture, this race may tighten back up again. But Miller about 3 seconds back there of Montini, so he's still got some time to go.
What a race it has been here today. Lots of action and lots of intrigue, along with some very tense moments among drivers. Getting a little bit tense too for Rafael Russo once again, but this time with Nick Delp. Now that the core 22 has gone backwards down the fields, he's trying to see if he can get a little bit farther than simply a top 10.
and you see him there run a little bit wide through that turn 4, trying to maximize the speed if he can, but not really able to. He's let Delp slip away that gap, extending out to about 0.5 of a second right now. Not really able to close in. He was a lot closer on that last lap.
Trying to figure out what sent Russo back there. Double checking real quick. He has 2 laps that are blotted out. Almost makes me wonder if he got a slowdown penalty and had to serve that.
That may very well be it.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
There it is. It's one of the storylines you can talk about quite a bit at Road Atlanta here. That turn 5, we talked about how tricky it is. Very easy to pick up an off track or a slowdown coming around through there. If you cut the corners a little bit in that turns 2 and 3 complex, very easy to pick up one there as well. So not out of the realm of possibility to do so.
Yeah, went back and looked, and indeed, Russo ran through the pit lane and seems to have accrued too many incident points here today. The 22, who was looking at a top 5, is barely within the top 10. Where that top 5 battle currently rests between Federico Montini, Francisco Montini, and then, well, it was with Miller and DeZube, but they are way far behind now. Look at how far ahead the Montinis are compared to there they are now, up and over the hill. And side by side, DeZube looking around the outside into the last chicane, sending it in deep, tries to hold him off. They almost come together, and Miller has to give way.
Good, brave move there from Tyler DeZube, just forcing it around the outside. We've seen a lot of guys try to do that and not have the prowess in their left foot to make it work. DeZube clearly bucking against the trend here, so move his Porsche up to 6th place. He's got about 3.2 seconds to try to make up on Francisco Montini here. It's going to be very, very difficult, I'm not going to lie, to try to get a top 10 for Tyler.
We are down to only 24 cars still running in this race. Prochaska, we know, has left. Ovando has DNF'd. Barrett spectacularly left the track, literally. And Josh Wolf has DNF'd. Nick Johnston also gone. Jerome Bertoon is our last runner, 14th in the GTEs. On to the backstretch once again. Here we go, all over again.
Seeing if Matt can take this position back from Tyler DeZube. Looks like DeZube has just got the straight line advantage, able to get a better run there off of turn 7. He's going to be able to hold Mac at bay, ticking down under 3 minutes to go. So not a lot of time left for Mac to try to reclaim this 6th position, but he's going to keep trying, it looks like.
Certainly is. And it'll be tight, but I think according to my math, we're 3 laps to go this time by. Yes, indeed we are, because Urbano is just going by the start-finish line. Now, we've been watching these two, but not together since a long time ago, because Watts was fighting with Eisler. Now that he has disposed of the Iceman, Byron Daly is already in his windscreen, and Watts is running him down, trying to see if he can challenge for that P4.
Well, with as much speed as we've seen Owen Watts have here today, I wouldn't be surprised if he is able to make a move on him. You see him there able to close up under braking, really get that car to do what he wants to do, slides it out to the corner, coming now across the start-finish line. He's already reducing that gap ahead to Daly. Still Watts coming on very strong here, under 2 minutes to go, about 2-3 laps left.
And here's an incredible story for you. Our 2nd and 4th are battling with one another, and that doesn't sound like much, but they're battling for 6th place. As Christian Eisler started in 2nd, Felipe Ruiz started in 4th, and they are both way out of position with miserable days. There you see them coming through turn 5 now. That is Ruiz in the red and Eisler in the black.
Yeah, Eisler having a very uncharacteristic fall through the field. His defense has been absolutely spectacular, but his overall pace has just not been what we are used to seeing. He's about 4/10 off of Christophe Urbano's fastest lap for Eisler, so something about this setup or this track just not suiting the Iceman.
Oh, and I think this is the best shot for Owen Watts. He's going to get by Byron Daly down into the chicane with ease. A decisive move from the number 14. Honestly, made the number 6 look like he was standing still. Here's a replay on the overtake.
Just sets him up perfectly off the draft. Little bit of a late move there. Good job for Watts to keep that car under
stick
control.
with it. Oh, we're going to come back from the replay. I was going to say he passed him right back into turn 1. Daly was not going to take this one sitting down. Wow. Some great stuff here between the number 6 and the number 14. I thought for sure the way that Watts took that, he was going to just run away from things, but now he's got to do it all over again.
Yeah, but here we go, the run off of turn 7. Who's going to get the better exit? It looks like that Daly's got a little bit of a better run there. You saw Watts having to correct the car ever so slightly off the curb. I think he may have caught just a hair too much. This is going to be very tight, though. That is the class leader of Michael Ross right in front. Is that going to slow up Daly? Daly jinks to the inside to try to get around the GTE, but doesn't do anything with it. That lets Watts pull right up behind him. They're going to take the white flag almost side by side, Joe.
Daly with the advantage still as they come across the line, and he is going to play defense. I'm keeping an eye on our leader because he's coming close to the checkered flag as they weave their way up the hill. Daly still doing a fantastic job holding off Owen Watts down through the S's, and they're not going to make a pass here, which is good because Christoph Herbino going to take a victory here today, his second one of the season in 3 rounds. Road Atlanta goes to the 92.
Great and quiet run from Herbino, just leading as much as he can. Karl Modoff crosses the lineup for a P2. Obviously qualified on pole, fell down, but was able to put in a very, very solid run. So kudos to Karl here today.
Cal Quinn with an easy 3rd, but next up is going to be 4th place Byron Daly and Owen Watts. Watts has another shot at it. Can he pull the move again? Can he manage to get by? Defense this time from Daly down into the corner. As they come out, it could be a drag race wheel spin for Byron Daly. Is that enough to give Watts a chance? No. It's going to go to Byron Daly for 4th, and behind them, it is Michael Ross, the 67, unfazed all day long here in Georgia. Victory for the Ford GT.
And Joe, I have an update on that battle for P5. Felipe Ruiz and Christian Eisler going into the chicane. Ruiz ran into the back of Eisler, spun Eisler out down the field.
Here's the replay. Let's take a look at it.
You can see here they get down. Eisler gets a little defensive, checks back across, and blam, right into the back and keeps going into the kitty litter. Terrible end of the run there for Christian Eisler.
I think there was a little bit of net code between them. It's unfortunate at the very end, but I think he would have hit him regardless, even without the net code. So let's go to a quick break. We'll come back with the unofficial results, and we'll have driver interviews just after this. Welcome back to Road Atlanta. Round 3 for the PRL Le Mans Series saw Christophe Herbinot win for the second time this season. The rookie is doing fantastic. Karl Modhoff couldn't challenge him despite starting on the pole. Just once he was overtaken, kept dropping back and never was a threat throughout the rest of the race. Ratio Calquin with a rather quiet run up to third place was then followed by Byron Daly from 11th to 4th. Byron working hard in the final laps to stay ahead of Owen Watts, who wound up with a top 5. He still had a net gain going from 8th place on the grid. Not so for Felipe Ruiz and Christian Eisler. They were 6th and 7th respectively, with Eisler unfortunately having an incident to contact Ruiz in the final chicane. See if the stewards have anything to say about that. Leighton was the last of our prototypes on the lead lap in 8th, with David Menino finishing 9th, and only 10 drivers out of our prototypes managed to finish the race, Day being the last one.
Michael Ross in his Ford GT putting in a dominant performance to take first place in that GTE class. Stephen Ash behind him in second. Uthman Alawi, after an uncharacteristic mistake early in the race, able to recover to third, followed by Federico and Francisco Montini. Those two separated by almost nothing over the course of the entire race. Tyler DeZube able to finally get by Mac Miller and hold on to that 6th place position in GTE. Mac Miller behind him, Sean Romig and Ted Lowendick behind him. Nicholas Delp and Kenny Rodriguez having a good battle through the closing stages of that race, with Dave Flanagan, Jerome Bethune, and Rafael Russo behind them.
And we've got our second place finisher in the prototypes with us. He had a good start off the line, but then couldn't hold back the newcomers. Carl, it's a P2. It's unfortunately not a win. What do you think of this number 92? He's got some pace, huh?
Yeah, Christoph, he's a really good driver. So, he does a lot of endurance stuff as well, and I think it really showed today when we got into the traffic. I mean, his pace was better than mine as well, so I don't want to make any excuses. He was faster than me anyways, and then he was just killer through traffic. Whenever we got it, he just kind of knew the gaps to go for, and that really helped him kind of stretch that gap out big real early. So congrats to him. He's tough. He's tough to race against, but luckily he's on my team, so I can go pick his brain and find out what he did there to be so quick.
Obviously. You didn't manage to make it for round 2 at Watkins Glen. Are you competing for a full season?
I will be at as many races as I can. I'm going to probably miss 2 rounds from now. I'll be here next week, and then the round after that I'll be in Daytona, so I'll miss that one. And then the rest of the season I should be here. So that'll be my, I think I could maybe have a decent season, but yeah, unfortunately there's just not enough drops, and I end up missing enough races. So I'm here to have as much fun as I can, and then contribute as much to the team championship. We haven't I haven't been part of any team championship winnings here in PRL, and with Christoph and me and Owen Watts, we have a pretty strong lineup this season. So hopefully, even though I might not be competing for the individual championship, I'll hope to do my part to help win that team championship.
Obviously still pretty important to you, it sounds like. Well, Daytona up next. That is going to be a huge draft track. Is that a bigger challenge with, drivers being able to ride your toe?
It's definitely a big challenge. The way you set the cars up over there. And me and Christoph did a 12-hour race, and you, with the car with no downforce, and then it's so stiff to go around the banking without dragging that it honestly handles terrible through the infield. So it'll be a real challenge all the way through, just from driving the car. And then, from a racecraft point of view, you really can't get away unless you're 8, 9 tenths a lot faster than the next guy. And, this is a pretty tight field, so that's going to be tough to do. But looking forward to it. It's always a lot of fun to run around Daytona. So, that should be a blast.
Look forward to seeing how you fare. And again, congratulations on a second, sir.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Move Up Transportation Solutions, Freedom USA, Race Factory, Unified for Kids, and Get Stuck, all the announcers and broadcasters. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
That was Karl Modhoff running in the prototypes today. Up next, DJ's got second place in the GTE class, Stephen Ash.
Well, Steven, that was a relatively quiet race out of you, or quiet by Road Atlanta standards, but looked like you never really had the pace to catch up to Michael, but a good performance nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a boring race today, but pretty fun nonetheless. A little bit crazy with all the LMP traffic. Yeah, just a little bit unfortunate in the beginning there with what happened with Uthman. I think it was just a little bit of a mix-up between us. He had a pretty big error in the beginning of the lap, which allowed me to get past him. And on that straightaway in the back, I saw him dart out, and I thought he was going to go for the move, so I lifted off. And I don't think he was anticipating me lifting off, and just got into the rear of me a little bit and took him a little deep. And then we made some small contact, and I had some damage for the rest of the race and couldn't challenge Michael.
Gotcha. Well, you stole my second question away from me regarding that contact, but I mean, how distracting is it for you as a GTE driver when you see one of those LMP drivers come up in your ear, or you hear that dreaded, you've got a faster car behind you coming in your ears?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty exciting, and I mean, especially at a track like Road Atlanta, it's really hard to manage. You just gotta kind of hope they make smart decisions sometimes, and you can manage it yourself sometimes by lifting in certain spots to allow them to go ahead of you and allow them to get ahead before the corner is usually the way to go, rather than going side by side through a corner. But yeah, there's a couple strategies you can take, but it's pretty fun with them.
Well, speaking of lifting, or rather not lifting, we're headed to Daytona next, a track where you never want to lift around that banking. How do you think that's going to fare? Is it going to be a little bit more fun in the GTEs? Obviously, we know the top speed the LMPs can do, but how is it from the sports car perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I love Daytona, and that's gonna be a great track, I think, for us. The pace at the top of the field this year is really close, and that's obviously a track with huge draft. So I think it's gonna be big pack racing there, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I know I, for one, am very looking forward to watching you guys around there. Steven, before we let you go, anybody you need to thank tonight?
Yeah, I just like to thank my team, Full Send Racing, team owner Steam Ledger, and the rest of the guys. My teammate Mac Miller, he had fantastic pace today, just got a little bit unlucky. But yeah, we'll get him next time. We're looking good. On to the next one. Thanks, guys.
And we'll see you at that next one, Steven. Congratulations again. And Joe Peak finally has caught up with the third place in the GTE category. You heard him mentioned a little bit earlier, Uthman Alawi.
Yeah, Utman, it is 3 top fives in 3 rounds, 2 of them with podiums, but still no wins on the cards. Is that frustrating, or are you pleased with this so far?
Well, looking at the season as a whole, it's a bit frustrating, but with the setup we had in the car and the times we were getting in practice, I'm honestly very happy with the third place at Road Atlanta. Traditionally, it's been a really hard track to set up the Porsches, so the fact that the RSR by G Performance guys, we got it nailed for both qualifying and the race to hold it on the worn tires and low fuel. I think that speaks more to our adaptability. So it is a bit frustrating, but I knew from the start I never had the speed of the top 2. So from there, just keeping my nose clean, and we achieved just that.
Well, speaking of keeping your nose clean, it seemed in the early laps you had a couple oops in there. It sounded like Steven thought that maybe he caused you a bit of a distraction. Is that what made you outbrake yourself down into the chicane, or was it something else?
Well, I was thinking of making the pass into that chicane, but then I decided just to let off a bit, let him have the spot. Too early to be fighting that hard. Obviously, he thought I was going to make the move, so when he let off early, I had to take some evasive action. Overall, it was a bit sketchy, not expecting him to let off so early, and didn't get any damage, so I guess that's good. But as the movie Cool Hand Luke once said, what we got here is a failure to communicate.
Good reference there, sir. Well, it was an interesting first 3 rounds as we had some different tracks in there, but now we head off to a Roval with Daytona. And I was talking to Modoff a bit about that with the slipstream. Do you think that's going to be an advantage or a disadvantage for you being able to ride in a train with the other cars?
Honestly, it all depends on how you set up the car, whether you want it to be better off in the infield section or on the straights. Obviously, exits mean a lot going on to the Daytona Speedway turns, so I think we're going to see a lot about which teams can get the best setups in, and then which drivers can hold on to the obviously very loose cars from low wing angles. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how that goes. Obviously, with the Daytona 24 hours coming up with us, it's probably going to be one of the tighter fields with all the practice everyone's getting. But in my past races, I've had a lot of success there, so I'm more of excited to race at that track next week.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you fare. Congratulations on a podium, and hopefully we'll talk to you in a week's time.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Zoot Manlawi, who finished third in the GTEs, and that's going to wrap up our interviews here today as we get ready to thank our sponsors before we take off. Of course, we start with Simulation Motorsports Affinity. If you want to see how to get a hold of them, they are at SIMMSA.net. And then, of course, there is NinjaTrader. Their website can be found at NinjaTrader.com. And finally, if you have a sim rig, check out Butt Kicker's products. They can be found at thebuttkicker.com. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen, as well to June Lalonde, who provides our music. If you want to check out more of it, she has a Bandcamp there on your screen. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media, which includes Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, we've got a merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com, where a link is in the description below. And while you're down there, make sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As we mentioned, heading off to Florida for our next race. It'll be Tuesday, January 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and see you on the track.